It's been some time now since I uploaded this video to the channel stating that I would be retiring from music entirely. Whereas the I want to say that some of the things I said on that video still stand true. This is not me coming out of retirement. I'm not going to upload videos regularly. I'm not taking requests, suggestions, commissions. Nor I'm going to keep chasing the views by working on content I frankly don't care about anymore. So I want to apologize if you're part of the audience that is here for my music aranjes or remixes mainly. It's just simply not my thing anymore. So I would appreciate if you stay here with me in my pursuit of knowledge, but I understand you want to go. Thank you for staying for the ride. That being said, I'm still very passionate about instrument sourcing. I don't want to make the story long, so I'm just gonna say that I'm back with the boys at the Mega Man sourcing team, and I've noticed of late that a small part of my audience seems to be equally passionate about it too, and they're using me as a reference for PS1 Mega Man X findings, which, hey, I really appreciate it, not gonna lie. Unfortunately, every time my name pops up, they link this. It is sufficient to say that these videos are extremely outdated by now, and call me a narcissist or whatever. Maybe I am, I don't know. But I can't let these videos be the examples of all the research work that we've done. So that's what this video is for. We come to a point where any research work has been incredibly slow, either because we run out of leads, the team members don't have time nor interest anymore, or we simply can't follow a lead without asking Jack to spend $500 in a worn out outdated piece of hardware. So it's safe to say that there probably won't be any major updates for a long time. So we're in a safe space to make this video without the risk of it going outdated anytime in the future. As far as instrument sourcing is concerned, I always felt that most of the research is directed toward the Super Nintendo games, which, of course, is perfectly okay. But little to no attention is being given to the PlayStation trilogy, so hopefully this video can be used as a guide of sorts to aspiring musicians chasing the PSX style. I would want to clarify that sources are not everything, but whether you like it or not, they are an important part of the sound and identity of these games, so if you're chasing a specific style, it's always a good idea to have this in mind. Anyways, yapping, without further ado, let's get into it. For starters, I would like to explain what a soundfont is. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood concepts in the VGA community as a whole, if not the most, and it leads to a myriad of misunderstandings regarding what a game actually uses. If you ask any inexperienced video game musician, they will tell you that soundfonts are instruments, samples, and sound effects that are part of any game's soundtrack, which can be subsequently extracted using programs. This, however, can be farther from the truth. This misunderstanding stems from the fact that a huge chunk of the VGM finding community is focused on the research of games using sequence soundtracks, which leads to everyone believing that every game works the same way. So, what is a sound font? A sound font is nothing more than a file format that compiles several audio samples into a single compact package that you can play using MIDI. Let me put up an example. Here we have the CD file of the Steve Stevens Guitar Sample Collection by East West. These folders contain all of the individual note samples that form a single instrument. If we were to export these samples as they are, we will only get the individual single samples of each note. If we were to use this as an instrument, our MIDI device or digital audio workstation of choice would pitch the sample up and down depending on the note that we are playing. In sequence music, this is known as single sampling. However, as you can see here, the different samples are actually mapped to a specific root key instead of using one for all notes. So, how do we use these samples all at once? The answer is exporting as a sound font, so all of the samples are merged together into a single, homogeneous, beautiful entity that we can then fit to our sampler of choice and play as an instrument. Next up, I will explain rather quickly the difference between sequence music and stream music. The reason that sound fonts are such a broad concept as they are is because games with sequence music often use spliced single samples as instruments that are then extracted and transformed into sounds. But okay, explain what sequence music is. I'll make matters simple. Sequence music is when the console generates music in real time using time-specific instructions coded into the hardware. Let's say that you write a line of code that tells the console sound chip, you're going to use this instrument, you're going to play this note at this specific time, at this specific pitch, at this specific volume, and then the console plays it for you. As I said before, games that have sequence music often make use of spliced single samples as instruments that are fed to the console and played using pulse code modulation channels. For example, the NES had a single PCM channel, I think, to feed one sample, but it's not always the case, because most consoles could generate their own waveforms using their internal sound chip. For example, this is where the iconic NES chiptune or 8-bit sound comes from, and also the Sega Genesis legendary FM synthesis sound. Talking about stream music is much easier because I think this is where everyone's minds default when thinking about putting music inside a video game. But okay, stream music is just making the music externally using whatever hardware or programs you have available, then exporting the result as an audio file, often an MP3, that is then subsequently put into the console and played at a specific time. Sounds good? Alright then, let's address the elephant in the room, a question that I've been asked millions of times, which is, do the PSX MMX games use sound fonts? The answer is no, guys. Not all games that have sequence music use sound fonts. Actually, I don't think I know any, but in the case of the PSX trilogy, they don't even have sequence music at all. All three games possess a fully streamed soundtrack, which is why it pisses me off so much when they try to misinform people into thinking that there is an X4 sound font or an X5 sound font. I'm sorry to break it to you, but such thing does not exist. But I know what you're going to say now. Darn! There is indeed an X6 sound font. I saw it in musical artifacts, and even you have said in the past that X6 has sequence music. Okay. It's true to some degree. X6 does have sequence music, but only for very specific tracks. You see, Mega Man X6 has voice-acted PowerPoints cutscenes that played at specific parts of the game. These voice lines are streamed audio. The problem is that the PlayStation 1 cannot play two simultaneous stream audio at the same time. So the composer had two options: either remove music from the cutscenes entirely or play sequence audio instead. So he made sequence versions of already existing tracks in the game. The problem is that people extract this thinking that the whole game uses sound fonts or that they can use this to recreate X6 music, but there is a small tidbit, and it's that the sequence tracks do not represent how the game sounds at all. There is a huge difference between this and this. This and this. This and this. I think the examples speak for themselves, but to sum it up, X6 is the only game in the trilogy to use sequence music, but that such sequence music does not represent the overall sound and feel of the game's soundtrack. This takes us to the million-dollar question. Can I use soundfonts to record PSX MMX music? And the answer is it depends. As you have seen, soundfonts are nothing more than a sound format. Of course, you can use it to make any type of music you want. I use them all the time to play the instruments of many vintage sample libraries, especially Steve Stevens. But I know that's not what you had in mind, is it? No, what you're actually asking is, can I use SGN soundfont or Arachno soundfont or Kirby Superstar soundfont and create this unholy amalgamation of samples like Pizza Tower? Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. The problem with most of the most popular soundfonts out there is that they're made with sequence music in mind. You have already heard that sequence music has quite a different feel than true music because most of the time they're using low quality single samples that do not fit the PSX aesthetic. These games have such an organic vibe in their soundtrack that makes them feel like high quality studio music because that's basically what they are. A same instrument will sound completely different when being played by the original synthesizer than from being sampled and turned into a soundfont. It will then sound robotic, and it loses all naturality. But if you're really hellbent on using sound fonts, you should pick ones that at least try to mimic the sound and feel of the original hardware where they come from, to the point where they're barely distinguishable from each other. Otherwise, you're going to end up with having an inaccurate sound that isn't going to resemble what you're looking for. There are at least 4 composers that made music for the PSX trilogy that we know of. Toshihiko Horiyama was the main and only composer for X4. Also, not many people know that he was making music for Mega Man ever since X1. Trying to source Horiyama is unbelievably difficult because not only did he have a very specific style of composing, but also he will make layers and layers of instruments and also add exaggerated amounts of reverb or delay or chorus, which makes pinpointing a specific preset a hard task. Next up we have Naoto Tanaka. Tanaka is perhaps the most recognizable name amongst all the PSX composers because many people believe he did the whole soundtrack for X5. And it's true, Tanaka was the main composer for X5, but he didn't compose nor arrange all of the tracks. He did make all of X6 music though, so there's that. Then we have Naoya Kamisaka. Kamisaka, I think, is both an appreciated and underrated composer at the same time because he made tracks that people are absolutely crazy about, but not everyone knows he was the one who made them. Most think it was Tanaka, so yeah. He's also the only composer out of the bunch to have online presence. He has a Twitter page, he's a super nice guy, he's very enthusiastic about his work and he's very open to questions, so go show him some love, will you? And if you're curious which tracks he composed, he was nice enough to make a Spotify playlist showing all of the music he made for X5, so pause the video if you want to take a good look at it. I'm going to the next one. Now we're going to talk about Takuya Miyawaki. Oh man, Takuya Miyawaki. I have a whole video talking about these guys, and to this day we don't know anything about him. His whereabouts are a mystery, and I don't even know if Miyawaki is his real name, to be honest. Just like Akemi Kimura was an alias for Naoto Tanaka, we kinda suspect that Takuya Miyawaki is also a pseudonym, so yeah. Miyawaki has quite a specific style of composing and instrumenting music that makes it easy to pinpoint which tracks he made, so once again, here's the whole list. Pause the video if you need to take a good look at it. Finally, there's Shinji Okada. I know it's 4 composers, but Shinji Okada is credited as part of the sound team of X5. Apparently, he worked alongside Takuya Miyawaki. Sometimes you'll see the names of people that don't make music credited in the Capcom music team, and it's because these are the guys who make sound effects, but Shinji Okada is an actual musician, and he will go on his way to make music for both X7 and Command Mission. I wanted to mention him because of that, but honestly, we have no idea what kind of work he did for X5 or why he's specifically credited as a Miyawaki, and we also have no idea what he used either. As I said before, it's quite hard to properly identify what Horiyama used for X4, but we know by Tanaka's testimony that he used a GB1080. If you're watching this, you probably already know what a 1080 is, but if you don't, then it's a sample-based synthesizer that was absolutely everywhere in the 90s video game scene. Ever since its usage was confirmed for X4, many people believe the game only uses this, but in reality, it wasn't used that extensively as many people seem to think. The GB1080 is currently discontinued, but you can still buy second-hand copies on retail or directly get the official BST by buying a Roland Cloud subscription. I do have to say that this BST is not accurate to the real hardware because it uses a reskinned XB5080 with all of the extra bands removed and effects on the Roland Phantom series. But if you're on a budget, it honestly does the work just fine. I also have to clarify that this BST is so shitty that it removed the original General MIDI banks, so you have to find the bin files to manually re-add them. We also believe that Horiyama owns something Korg. Our closest guess is the Korg Wave Station because we found that one of the presets in this thing is an identical match to an instrument found in Zero's intro stage theme. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to find other similar matches in the Wave Station, which makes it kinda dubious if Horiyama really used it, but unless we find the same preset in other Korg synths, it's going to remain as the most likely match for the time being. Talking about other suspects, we got the Korg Trinity and the Korg M1, but these don't have an accurate node match to say for certain that they were used. If you're looking to make X4's recreation, however, I recommend you to use them because the instruments honestly sound very similar to those found in X4. Once again, you can either get all of these synthesizers secondhand or buy the BSTs in Korg's page. And don't worry, unlike Roland, Korg actually tries to make their BSTs as accurate to the real hardware as possible. Now let's talk about the drums. I've been asked several times what kind of drum samples Horiyama used for X4, and to be honest, we're not quite sure ourselves about the answer. However, one day we analyzed a particular game that Horiyama made music for called The Misadventures of Trombone and found that Horiyama used two drum sample libraries. Roland LCDP01 Drums and Cymbals, and Club 50 Foundations, also by Roland. The drums in these libraries sound suspiciously similar to those of X4, but unfortunately, we couldn't find an accurate node match to confirm that they were actually used for that game. Again, if you're looking to make X4 style music, I highly recommend you to use these because they honestly got the same vibe as that game. These two sample libraries are discontinued and can be bought anywhere, at least officially. Fortunately for you, there are archive pages where you can download their digital versions with all of the original samples. Our research was a bit easier with Naoto Tanaka because he was the only interview composer for Rockman X Soundbox to talk about the equipment he used. However, most people don't know that he didn't fully disclose everything that he used for both X5 and X6, but don't worry, because we got you covered. For X5, Tanaka used once again a GB1080, but with several expansion cards added. You see, the GB1080 could attach these little cards here which contain an additional list of presets and voices that the synth itself could play. The expansion boards that we could find to have been owned by Tanaka were Vintage Synth, Session, Orchestra, and World. Out of all these, it is Vintage Synth the one that saw the most use across the games. We have made more than 20 Vintage Synth findings and we keep finding more and more when we suspect it. I have a whole video dedicated to the expansion board, so feel free to check it out. Unfortunately, these expansion boards don't have any official BST form, so the only way to get them is to buy them secondhand. The SRX expansion boards and, subsequently, the SRX BSTs also contain certain patches from their sRGB predecessors. However, these do not have all the presets, so whether you like it or not, you are missing instruments. But don't fret yet, there are two methods for you to use these expansions at full capacity without having to buy them on retail. The first one is getting the Virtual GB BST. This is an unofficial BST emulator of the Roland 880, a predecessor of the 1080 that can use all of the expansion boards. The cons of using Virtual GB is that it's kinda hard to set up. In my case, FL Studio won't even open it, and also that the UI is very rough looking and makes using this BST hard to get used to. The second method is getting the bins files of the expansion boards and running them through the SRX BSTs that contain the voices of their predecessors. For example, SRX keyboards has all of the voice data of Vintage Synth, so if I load the bins through the BST, I should be able to play all of the presets of the original board. The cons of this method is that some presets don't really take the conversion too well, and you're going to end up with instruments having a very muffled and inaccurate sound. This method also requires you to own the SRX BSTs in the first place. There is also an extra method for the Session expansion board, which is downloading the sRGB80 custom BST, another unofficial BST that has all of the presets and voices of Session alongside other expansions. The Orchestra and World expansions also got their own indie BST. Just like Horiyama, we suspect that Tanaka owned a Korg synthesizer, and we're currently torn between the Korg 01W and the Korg X3. Sadly, there is absolutely no way to get these two synths anymore unless you buy them secondhand. I think there are some 01W fan-made BSTs and sample libraries out there, but honestly, these are not good enough and do not really replace the original hardware, nor do they work to recreate PSX music. Guess we will have to wait for an official BST someday. Tanaka also confirmed to have used a Roland Soundcam as 88VL, which is basically just a smaller version of the standard CAS88. He would mostly use this scene just for the guitars. Actually, this is where the iconic X6 rhythm guitar comes from. And to recreate this sound, he used a Zoom 1204 effector. The CS88 has a VST form, but it has been discontinued, and you can't get it anywhere officially. Fortunately, there are other unofficial ways to get it. Talking about drums, Tanaka used the Alesis DM5 quite extensively. It's used in all of his X5 tracks, and even in X6 you keep finding DM5 samples. The DM5 doesn't have any VST form, but you can easily get sample libraries of the thing if you search around the web long enough. Going over to X6, Tanaka introduced the Yamaha A4000, which is just a buttered version of the A5000. He would use this sampler to play back several sample libraries. In this case, Steve Steven guitars, Synthrax loops, which is one of the factory CDs that came with the sampler, and also Funky Extremes Volume 1 by Sonic Foundry. Once again, there are no official ways to get these sample libraries, so you'll have to do some web surfing to find them. I do have to say that the Yamaha A4K factory CDs were very designed to be used with a Yamaha sampler, so if you find any rips on the web, they're going to sound pretty bad or have disorganized samples. I'm afraid that there is no correct way to go around this restriction while keeping the original sound of the samples. Finally, he admitted having used a Core Electrum ES1 for the drums. The Electrum is mainly just a drum sampler, but what's actually important from it are the factory patterns that come with it and that Tanaka used for certain songs. Sadly, there is no way for you to get an Electrum unless you buy it second-hand, and while you can find the factory patterns that loops around the web, you won't be able to customize them in the same way that Tanaka did. These patterns are not audio loops, but rather samples that are arranged as pre-made patterns, so you can modify each one of the samples as you wish without compromising the quality of the samples. Without an ES1, however, you will be pretty limited to what you can do with this. There are also some tracks that use mystery drum samples that do not match the one found in the DM5, and that we suspect were taken from a sample library. To this day, we haven't been able to find where these drum samples come from, but if you're looking to make X6 music, there is this library called Double Platinum Drums by the Elio that has samples that sound very similar to those found in X6. You can buy Double Platinum Drums from Elio's page. If you're curious which tracks have all the unidentified drum samples, then you have them here. Once again, pause the video if you need to check it. Tracking down Naoya's gear was much easier than any of the composers here because we didn't even need to research anything at all. Naoya used to have an old site, which is currently accessible at Internet Archive, in which he listed all of the equipment he owned many years ago. However, the only pieces of equipment that concern us are the ones he used for X5, which are the Roland GB1000 with the orchestra expansion, the Soundcanvas 88VL and the Soundcanvas 55, the Yamaha Mu80 and the Alesis D4. He also owned the famous TX81C synthesizer, but currently we can't say for certain that it was used for X5. The GB1000 doesn't have any VST form, so the only way to use its presets is loading the bins through the 1080 VST. But sadly, this comes with all of the sound downsides that I previously mentioned with the expansion boards. Most sound canvases are accessible through the VST once again. And for the Mu80, you'll have to buy one in real because there's absolutely no way to get it in VST form. The closest you're gonna get is with this VST that I'm only gonna try to pronounce, which contains some of the patches shared across all the MU series. And for the D4, you can once again just get the samples on the internet. Miyawaki is pretty much known as the Yamaha guy in the sources team, and indeed we suspect that he owns something for the MU family, either a MU80 or a MU100. And at some point we even considered something for the QY family, either a QY70 or a QY100, but we honestly have no idea what he exactly owned. However, weirdly enough, we do know that he owned a Korg synth, which we suspect is once again the O1W due to some presets we found, but it might as well be another X3 for all that we know. There's no way to tell if all this equipment belonged to Capcom or if each composer owned their own gear like Naoya. Yeah, it's not much and it's to nothing, but hey, at least it's something. Hopefully, you learned one thing or two from this video. Remember that in order to accurately recreate the PSX style, you need to pin down both the sound and the composition style. And while I'm not expert in music theory, I do hope that these videos give you an insight on how to get the sound part right. Please stay tuned for the next video in which we're going to showcase the specific samples and instruments that we found so far in all of our years of research. Until then,